All right, so first things first, we can all sort of agree that the refs are absolute dog duke, right? Like the league would probably be better off just sending literal zebras out there at this point. I mean, at least it would be funnier. That's debatable, honestly. That said, let's be real, y'all. The only time the refs are actually bad to us is when it's our team getting shafted, swindled in Shanghai. So I'm not going to really waste any time talking about this play or this one or these ones either. Because I mean, remember when this happened? Yeah, exactly. All that out the way. First order of business. Damn, Davon, like, did you really have to pop him that hard? Like, he hit that man like he sent dick pics to his granny or something. Although, if she looks like this, I kind of get it, to be honest. Actually, I don't. My fault. I shouldn't have said that. Kids, don't send unsolicited nudes, especially to strangers. That's big weirdo energy. And also sexual harassment, to be honest. Exactly. Speaking of Mr. All the Money in the World Can't Buy You Good Morals, Deshaun has yet to play up to that guaranteed $230 million contract, let alone all the draft capital Cleveland gave up to get him. And if we haven't already, I think it's time for us to just accept that this is probably what Watson is now. Like, even when he is on the field, which is hardly a gimme these days, he's not throwing with near the anticipation or accuracy that made him worth all the picks and cash to begin with. But that's the thing, though. The best ability is availability, something I'm sure Future's been told multiple times by his multiple offspring. Deshaun's body breaks down more than a pre-owned Tesla and is just as expensive. And methinks that bum shoulder of his is as big a culprit of his bummy play as his newfound sexual deviance deprivation. Now, if I speak, aside from all that, Myles Garrett is a man. And that D is legit. But they're only going to go so far with PJ Willihan taking the lion's share of snaps. Do y'all know what PJ Willihan is? Or is that just a Philly thing? Whatever, PJ sucks is my point. Both of them. Speaking of sucking, boy howdy did we crown the Lions a bit too quickly. If y'all didn't watch the game, this clip of Wing Dragon of Ra getting FU'd into the turf by Darak Yasin basically sums it all up. If y'all remember the video I did a little while ago, I did say that Detroit looks like the best team in the league. But I mean, wombats look like the fuzzy little bunny bear that you always wanted to weird science into reality until you learned that those little bastards are the size of an actual effing bear in real life. And worse yet, that they will literally chew your ankle down to the bone if given the chance. Nah, for real. Fuck these little furry a-holes. My point is, power rankings mean about as much as a politician's campaign promises. Y'all have heard this ad nauseousness at this point, but the NFL really is a week-to-week league. Jamie Foxx made a whole movie about it, remember? And as much as we want to crown the Super Bowl champ in effing October, if that Detroit game didn't teach us anything else, it taught us to maybe pump the brakes on any preemptive coronations. And it also told us who the MVP probably is. Okay, so I've been saying all year that C-Mac was your most valuable player, and my gut still tells me that he is. But, I mean, come on, y'all. If we talking about the literal most valuable player to their team, it's Lamar, man. Let's be real. The Ravens might not even be a playoff team without Lamar. But with him, their ceiling is a Super Bowl appearance, in my opinion. I'm not necessarily saying that they will get there. I still think it'll be Miami repping the AFC at the end of the day. But if Baltimore does get there, it'll be because of Action Jackson. It's wild what happens when you give a guy not named Mahomes multiple targets to throw to, right? Speaking of, Pat, yeah, I know the thing that everybody probably wants to talk about are Pat and Kelsey's counting stats, but the real story is the Chargers, man. Please, for the love of baby black Jesus, send Brandon Staley to football jail already, man. Like, I know that 70-20 debacle should have gotten Vance Joseph canned, but nothing's right in Denver anyway, except Russ's stroke game, apparently. I think we can all agree that at this point in his life, Russ can never truly lose, right? But Future sure did. Like, how, Brandon, how do you, this supposed defensive genius, allow almost 350 passing yards in one freaking half? Not a game. Like, these are literally Madden numbers. It's almost like once Pat started cooking, he tried to rage quit the game by pretending that the controller died until he realized that it don't work like that here. And on top of that, Herbert is thrown with the accuracy of a drunk man's piss stream. Now, some of that is on his O-line, but I mean, all the lines in the league right now, besides Detroit, Philly, and San Fran, block about as well as a toddler security gate. But Herbert keeps getting passes because every once in a while, he does stuff like this. I don't know, Chargers fans. They're saying that the finger on his non-throwing hand is bothering him, which I don't know how getting hurt on your non-throwing hand impacts your throwing. But the way that a lot of media folks are treating Herbert's woes in comparison to, I don't know, Lamar, when his receivers couldn't be trusted to catch chlamydia from a pirate pussy last week, is giving post-2017 Carson Wentz. I'm not saying Herbert is the next Carson, so stop being a little baby B word and think about what I'm saying critically for a second. I'm talking about the way media either ignores or excuses the flaws in his game because the splash plays are so slurpable. Like, I mean, I am an Eagles fan, y'all. Remember, like, I literally sat there and watched national sports media perform a pantomime prostate massage on Wentz like every week, despite the very obvious and exploitable bad habits and mechanics that were downplayed during his MVP run because of how high the highs were that season. Like, yeah, Herbert is good. He is a franchise guy. And there are times where he is knocking on the door of elitism. But again, y'all crowned him way too early and well before he did anything crownable. And the worst part is now y'all are giving Emmanuel Acho of all people clout. Like, don't ever do that. Don't give this man a reason to feel validated for anything. So now let's talk about Buffalo. See, I don't know what to make of this team other than the fact that they ain't going to the chip like this. Sorry, Wes. Like, this team is basically the 76ers of football. Y'all got a generational talent back there running the show whose only kryptonite seems to be the playoffs, apparently. Surrounded by what, in theory at least, should be a championship caliber supporting cast. But just like the Sixers, the problem with the Bills is that the pieces just ain't piecing the way that they were supposed to. And the championship window probably closed a year or two ago if we're going to keep it a buck. But y'all are just way too deep in it to admit that. Y'all remember when Josh was coming out of college and the most popular comp for him was poor man's Carson Wentz? Yeah, life comes at you pretty hard and pretty fast, doesn't it? Well, that's the main issue with Buffalo right now. Post-Dayball Allen is basically what Carson would have been if he had just regressed to the mean after that 17 season instead of losing his smile like HBK once Jalen came to town. The worst part is it's not even Josh's fault, really. Like, he's doing way too much right now, just like Blueface at that Rams game. If you know, you know. If not, I'm not going to bother telling you. I just got this joint monetized like yesterday. Buffalo's game plan is basically just Josh go cook. But you can also tell that he's being coached to keep his eyes downfield instead of doing those Cam Newton impressions that ESPN loves so much. And listen, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing in a vacuum. It's probably the best thing for his long-term future. But it is when your playbook is basically just a 3-ring binder with a single piece of paper in it with the words "Diggs down there somewhere" written on it. Like, you can't ask Clark Kent to be Superman if you take like half his kid away. Then he'd be Goku. And I'm not going back and forth with y'all on this. We settled this argument twice over the course of a decade now. I don't really got much to say about the Patriots. Y'all are not a good team. I lied when I said y'all were, even though I ain't know it yet. I generally don't understand why Kraft is giving Belichick more money for more time to stand on the sideline and suck as much joy out of his players as possible by making one of the funnest jobs imaginable more unbearable than Drake's Esperanza Spalding bar. Like, damn, nigga, it's been over 10 years. Get over it already. And Rihanna. Speaking of Belichick, I've been saying this for at least since AB left Pittsburgh and lost any semblance of sense he had left. I know how much the national media loves to slurp up Shanahan and McDaniel now, and before that, McVay for a hot minute, and before him, Bruce Arians, and before that, Emperor Palpatine over here for the better part of like the last 20 years. But for my money, which ain't much, by the way, Mike Tomlin is the best head coach in the league for basically doing what Daboll did with the Giants last year, but like the last 10 years. Like, how on God's great earth is this team 4-2 when they were just getting dog walked by the Texans 2 weeks ago? I mean, part of it is that the Texans are actually pretty decent this year, believe it or not. And another part of it is this egregiously bad spot. But the point is, under just about any other coach, this team probably wouldn't have even been in position to win the game off of this bad spot to begin with. And listen, I'm not saying that Pittsburgh is like an Isle of Misfit Toys or whatever, because that D, Watt, and Highsmith especially can and will keep you in games. And George Pickens looked like he may unfortunately become the newest recipient of the Andre Johnson curse, stacking brilliant performance after highlight reel catch despite mid to absolutely miserable QB play. So now we get to the Sunday night game, which I know is what most of y'all want to hear me talk about. Well, first of all, go fucking Birds. I tried to tell y'all not to overreact to that Jets game, didn't I? Didn't I? But no, y'all chose to listen to Vegas instead on Kelly Green night of all days. Here, hold this L while I go find a dunce cap for your dumb ass. Jokes aside, though, I think this was a pretty decent litmus test for both teams, but Miami especially, because I hate to do this since y'all did it to us literally all of last season, but who has Miami actually beaten this year? What makes it worse is Philly started its 16th different D-back last night. There's literally been no consistency in the secondary since week 1, and Sean Desai still held that diesel fuel passing game in check. I know the commentators kept talking about Miami's run game, but again, the competition inflated those numbers anyway, so I wasn't too worried about that, especially with Achane out. It was Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle that stressed me out all last week. But even if Cheetah hadn't caught a case of the dropsies at the worst time possible, the O still would have only hit pay dirt twice all game. That's the thing, man. The highest ranked O in the league by a mile this year only scored 10 points against a patchwork secondary and a DC who admittedly probably will get a head coaching gig in like 2 or 3 years at this rate. But still, y'all kind of get where I'm going with this, right? On the other side of the ball, first of all, I hope AJ hasn't been hitting up any dispensaries around the area, or at least had the sense to hit up Lamar Odom for one of them fake dick and ball sets, because I'm pretty sure that he got a call from the league on Monday morning. This is literally a historic tear he's on right now. And after living through years where our best receiver was a dude who was literally out the league the next year, I bask in the glory of country dudes who can catch footballs. And now, yeah, we got to talk about Jalen, and specifically Jalen's turnovers, because, yeah, if it wasn't already, it's officially a problem at this point. But not as big a problem as I think some people make it out to be. See, people who say Jalen regressed say that because they either don't watch the games, just don't like the Eagles, or both. Or they're actual Eagles fans, to be honest. A lot of them are just Eagles fans. The reason it's stupid, though, is because if you actually watch the maturation of his game, you can see that much like Allen, he's just not taking off and running the way he used to, which is kind of a big part of his game. Now, maybe he's got a gimp we didn't know about until last night, but I don't think that's what it is, or at least it's not the complete story. See, if you ask me, Jalen is becoming the pocket passer that Donovan thought he was. And with that, it's going to come some head-ass decisions like this, but also absolute masterpieces like this. And let me just be real for a second. If I can get this on a consistent basis, like 2 or 3 years from now when Jalen hits his prime, I'll take the nut punches for now. Oh, and for the record, for those of y'all who do want to bitch about the tush push again, I don't want to hear it. Because Miami gets away with about 50-11 illegal formations every single game by calling it motion. But we don't get think pieces about that because it looks too sexy for casuals to catch it. On the other hand, there's absolutely nothing Wood-worthy about Philly's secret weapon. I mean, unless you're an Eagles fan, obviously. It's just straight up smash mouth football. We gonna line up, punch you in the mouth, and dare you to say something about it. Like it's basically the Philly metro area in football play form. Like seriously, man, if you don't like the play that much, just find a way to stop it and shut up. But that's the thing, isn't it? You won't stop it because you can't stop it. Reason being, aside from Philly and maybe like 3 or 4 other teams, every other D and O-line unit in the league is so conditioned to play in spread and not actually have to block or be blocked. So instead of putting some pads on your guys and telling them to get their weight up, you bitch about it to the league instead. Oh, well, that's not a football play. It belongs in rugby. Why can't my guys replicate something that Philly has spent at least the last 2 seasons perfecting, and we didn't even think about trying until 1 week into this season? You get it? That's how y'all sound. Like bitches. Okay, I think I might have to redo the hot takes video. All right, so jokes aside, I know that there's a bunch of Bay Area football fans ready to throw themselves off the Golden Gate right now, but chill, y'all. It really ain't as bad as it looks, unlike the cost of living out there. Believe it or not, I kind of empathize with y'all as a fan of a team with a quarterback the org never really expected to be more than a stopgap at best. And when he far exceeded that, the whole rest of the world sat there with bated breath waiting for him to crater back to earth just because he didn't go in the first round. So I'm speaking from experience when I say I can tell y'all that the first thing people, especially in your division, are going to do is at the first sign of a rough patch, look at that box score and pleasure themselves to the thought of saying, "I told you so." The thing is, the last couple of weeks is really the first time Brock has faced any real adversity since he took over as the starter. I mean, torn up elbow notwithstanding, obviously. And I mean, I know the phrase game manager is dirtier than Mac Jones, but that's what Purdy is at this point. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, y'all. Like, he's basically Alex Smith on HGH is what I'm saying. He's built perfectly for what this offense asks of him, to follow the script and not F it up. The problem is when all of a sudden you're down the score with 2 minutes left and you tell him, hey, Brock, I forgot to get dinner tonight. Do you mind cooking? Because all you're going to get at that point is a pack of oodles and noodles and an ice cube. I'm not saying that can't or won't change in the future. What I'm saying is even if theoretically y'all do have the personnel, this team philosophically is just not built to play from behind and pull off a Hollywood-worthy walk-off with time expiring. Which leads me to my real concern with the Niners. Again, this team is just not built to storm the castle. It's built to defend it. And I hate to do this to y'all the same way that I did with the Dolphins, but if you look at San Fran's schedule going back to when Purdy took over, who exactly have y'all beaten? Much like my wife, y'all just are not accustomed to not being on top. And then when y'all do find yourselves on the bottom, you don't know how to reestablish dominance. Unlike my wife. I won is what I'm saying. Y'all didn't really face anybody in the same weight class until the championship game last season. And instead of asking yourselves, well, how did we give up 31 goddamn points? Y'all spent the entire offseason bitching about how you would have won that game if your big brain head coach didn't try to block a 16-sack All-Pro and the co-leader in forced fumbles that season with a backup tight end. Well, whoop the freaking do, San Francisco. You now have the option of activating a third QB on game day. It still ain't going to change the fact that Kirk Cousins was able to hang in the pocket and carve y'all up with underneath routes instead of forcing the ball downfield and into coverage because he spent the majority of that game working with a 2-score lead. Speaking of Cousins, is Kirk actually clutch now? No, he's not. Like, not at all. Again, the box score only tells part of the story. Remember, Kirk threw a pick like 3 snaps into the game, and had C-Mac not fumbled on the next series, we might be sitting here rehashing that old, tired, primetime Kirk narrative that we love so much because it requires literally no analysis other than can't play at nighttime. Like I keep saying, Kirk is going to get his numbers. He always gets his numbers. There's a reason I keep calling him the fantasy MVP. But the problem is he doesn't get wins. And yeah, as someone who thinks the QB win stat is more overblown than Marvel hate, Kirk always gets into trouble when he has to seal the deal or will his team to a win. Minnesota didn't score a touchdown in the second half, and until like the last 4 minutes of the game, it kind of felt like San Fran was always just one home run play away from taking it over. But the D's showed up series after series and kept Purdy and C-Mac in check, while Kirk blew multiple chances to call game with a back-breaking TD drive. That said, Jordan Addison might be the best receiver in this class already. And when Jefferson comes back, Minnesota can at the very least push for a wild card spot before inevitably getting stomped in January because Kirk is too scared to push the ball downfield in high leverage situations and instead chooses to throw the check down to preserve his passer rating instead.